All right, as Carlos stated, I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight. His name is Kevin Wessels, and he is the Assistant Director of Property Planning and Stewardship at the H.E.B. Butt Foundation, where he works to ensure that the H.E.B. Butt Foundation camp property in Real County, is healthier and more beautiful in 100 years than it is today. He has a BS in Renewable Natural Resources and Forestry from Texas A&M University. And Kevin lives in Kerrville, Texas with his wife and enjoys the opportunity to help conserve the Texas hill country that he loves. Kevin is a graduate from the class of 2017. And after reading his bio and some information, I realized he just lives down the street where I live. So that's a small world for me. With all everything put aside, I want to go ahead and introduce Kevin. And Kevin should be, I got him here as he's muted. So I'm going to make sure that he becomes unmute. So Kevin, you ready?
I'm ready. Let me share my screen here.
Okay.
All right. Is that showing up for everybody?
Yes, I see it. I get you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. It's a real privilege to be able to present tonight. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone for your time. I know that your time is valuable, and so I appreciate the opportunity to share this information. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is what is light pollution, what are the consequences of artificial lights, and what can we do? So a lot of my references today will come from a book titled The Ecological Consequences of Artificial Night Lighting. It was edited by Catherine Rich and Travis Longcore, and it's essentially a literature review of some studies that currently exist for a variety of taxa. And it's just an excellent source of information. And I would suggest it to anybody who wants to dig deeper. But I just wanted to let y'all know that that's what I rely heavily on. And I will share some quotes from that book throughout. And I wanted to start us out with some quotes. This is from Rich and Longcore. They say, as we consider the transformation of the planet, mostly we envision changes that we are able to see by day. Our diurnal bias has allowed us to ignore the obvious, that the world is different at night and that natural patterns of darkness are as important as the light of day to the functioning of ecosystems. So I will also say throughout my talk the abbreviation IDA, and that stands for International Dark Sky Association. So giving a history of the dark sky, in 1882, the first power plant in Texas was built in Galveston. It wasn't until 1936 that rural electric cooperatives began to bring electricity to rural communities across central Texas. And in 1947, Fredericksburg and Mason received electricity. And it wasn't until 1949 that electricity was brought to western Kerr County. So I share this to say that the need to conserve the night sky is a relatively recent problem and one that's entirely caused by humans. So as technology has progressed so rapidly in the past few years, it's just easy to forget how recently electricity came here. And it wasn't up until about 70 to 80 years ago that Kerr County had the dark sky and the starry nights of our ancestors. And so that's in the lifetime of some people on this call, and this has just changed dramatically. So the hill country is on the edge of darkness. According to the Texas Demographic Center, Texas grew by 15.3% between 2010 and 2019. And I'm gonna share some more statistics from that group, and I don't say them to discourage anyone, but rather just to be realistic about the timeliness of this conversation and bring light to the challenges that we're facing. And as master naturalists, there are a lot of implications from this data beyond a dark sky And so this growth is just affecting us in a variety of ways, and it's important to understand it. And I'll say this several times throughout tonight, but today is the easiest that acting will be. Today is the easiest that this will be. So, like I said, we're having really rapid growth in Texas. Texas makes up only 8.9% of the total US population, but was responsible for 32.4% of the total US growth between 2019 and 2020.
Wow.
In Austin, the Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown area grew by 29.8% between 2010 and 2019. And the San Antonio, New Braunfels area grew by 19.1% in that same period of 2010 to 2019. And on this slide, if every little person represents 1,000 people, this is the number of people who moved to Texas in one single year between July 1st, 2018 and July 1st, 2019. That's 367,215 people, which is approximately 1,006 people per day in 1 year. So you can imagine the amount of light pollution that is being added and occurring as 1,000 people a day move to Texas. And that's, again, why today is the easiest that it'll be, because every day 1,000 new people are coming. So like I said, here, the hill country is on the edge of darkness. And here's a map that shows light pollution in Texas. And you can see that the hill country is still on this edge, but light pollution can persist up to 120 miles from the source, according to the IDA. And they also say that light pollution is increasing by 2% per year. And that arrow, if that shows up in the timing of me saying that, is Kerrville. So you can see that we have some work to do, but that we're on this edge of still a dark area. So what is light pollution? Light pollution is any adverse effect of artificial light. And this is the cause of many of the issues that we're discussing today. And there are three main types of light pollution that we'll be discussing. And we'll go through them in greater length throughout the presentation, but I'll just start by defining them. The first is sky glow. Sky glow is diffuse, scattered skylight attributable to scattered light from sources on the ground. So in other words, sky glow is the brightening of the night sky over inhabited areas. And you could think of it as a sort of artificial daytime at night. Next is glare. Glare is the intense and blinding light that reduces visibility. A light within the field of vision that is brighter than the brightness to which the eyes are adapted. So more simply, glare is excessive brightness that causes visual discomfort. This one's probably familiar. I show an example here of car headlights that cause glare and that visual discomfort. And then the last type of light pollution we'll talk about is light trespass. And that's light falling where it's not wanted or needed. It's spilled light, it's obtrusive light. And so it's light where it shouldn't be. So having said all that, why conserve the night sky? There are a variety of reasons that I will go through. The first one being human health. According to the IDA, exposure to artificial light at night can harm your health. So the impacts of human health from night sky lighting is circadian rhythm and melatonin production are altered. And this is really important because melatonin helps keep us healthy. It has antioxidant properties, it induces sleep, it boosts the immune system, it lowers cholesterol, and it helps the functioning of thyroid, pancreas, etc. And so nighttime exposure to artificial light suppresses melatonin production. Additionally, artificial light at night can increase your risk for obesity, depression, sleep disorders, diabetes, and breast cancer. So we need to protect ourselves. We need this natural light dark cycle of day and night, and there are some really dire consequences of artificial light. Another reason to conserve the night sky is safety. So when we consider safety, more light is not always better. Glare actually decreases safety because it shines into our eyes, like we said, and it constricts our pupils, and it makes it more difficult for our eyes to adjust to low light conditions. So here I have a picture of a light that's very bright. You would think that it's creating a safer situation. And another example of an excessively bright light that you would think illuminates everything it needs to. But your goal needs to be safety and security, and that's by creating good visibility. So these next two pictures show that there was actually a potentially unfriendly person, or just demonstrates that when you shield that glare, you actually have better visibility. So we need to be making visibility our goal, not more light. And glare actually, it affects the rod cells in our eyes, and it saturates and overwhelms our eyes. And this can shut down our night vision for quite a while and take 40 minutes to get back our sensitivity. And so there's some real safety implications involved with that. The next reason to conserve the night sky is wildlife. And I'll spend quite a bit of time here on my talk. I personally love wildlife. I love ecosystems and conservation. And so I had always heard that night light affects wildlife, but I wanted to dive deeper for myself. And I wanted to provide y'all some more specific examples. And so I will go through a variety of different types of animals that are affected. But you may be already familiar with a few showcase examples of well-known wildlife that are impacted, but I plan to go a little bit deeper here. So the types of wildlife that are affected that I'll cover are mammals, birds, herps, meaning reptiles and amphibians, fishes, invertebrates, and plants. So I have a bat here on the slide as an example that there are many nocturnal types of mammals. There's bats, badgers, small carnivores, rodents, some primates, marsupials. And there's actually relatively few studies that demonstrate the effect of artificial night lighting on animals. There are some well-known examples like whales, who use the night sky to astronavigate. And bats are a pretty well-studied example. And I just wanted to provide a quick quote that summarizes just how much of an impact lighting has on bats. This is again from a chapter from Rich and Longcore, and they say that the habit of feeding at artificial lights is now so common and widespread among bats that it must be considered part of the normal life habit of many species. So that's a really highly integrated part of their life now, so much so that scientists are saying it should be considered part of their normal behavior to go feed at night lights. And so in general, the effects that artificial lights are having on mammals specifically is that it's disrupting foraging patterns. So the moonlight influences behavior, and that normally restricts the foraging activity and movements of animals, which reduces their total duration of activity and then concentrates their activity to the darkest periods of night. And those behaviors are pretty well understood in desert rodents, but artificial light is having a similar effect as moonlight. It's also increasing predation risk. Animals in artificial light are either needing to accept the risk of predation, which is associated with feeding in the light during the night, or they need to minimize their risk of predation by reducing their activity, and that can come at the cost of body mass from getting less food. Artificial light also disrupts the biological clocks of mammals. So like us, the circadian clock influences what they do. And mammals have a annual clock that's this rhythm of about a year. And that influences changes in body mass, hormone, reproductive status, hibernation, and circadian activity. And light is a important external signal to time these annual rhythms, and light is affecting things like the mating success, anti-predator vigilance, by changing the timing of this biological clock. Artificial light is also increasing mortality on roads. One study concluded that increased highway lighting was not actually effective at reducing deer vehicle accidents in the US. And the rapid shift to a bright area that's illuminated saturates their eyes in nocturnal animals and makes it difficult for them to avoid collisions. So they become temporarily blinded as they enter a lighted area. And it also disrupts their dispersal movements. So streetlights can negatively affect an animal's ability and willingness to cross a road or move through or into an area that is lit. Now I will talk about birds. Birds are a much more well-known example of the effects of night lighting. There's a really dangerous physical danger from artificial lights that comes with confusion, but there's also behavioral and ecological consequences that to me seem more dire. It's thought that birds lose their visual cues to the horizon when they fly into lights at night, so it affects their ability to migrate, and it blinds their visual details, and young birds respond more to sky glow of cities than adults. And so birds may enter a light column and they can circle, and they may collide with a building near the light column, or getting stuck in this light column could reduce their energy stores that they need for migration to continue on. Or they could get stuck there until the morning, until the day, and then they collide with the glass of the city buildings. Or it could delay arrival at their breeding or wintering grounds. One study found that light increased the nighttime activity levels of birds, and that actually affected their disease dynamics by being less able to fight off disease because they didn't have as much sleep. And then several urban studies have found that artificial light at night triggers songbirds to sing earlier in the day. And because females tend to select early singing males, this shifted dawn chorus, because of the night lighting, actually affects which birds get to reproduce. And so instead of being based on females' interpretation of a bird's fitness and their ability to pass on the better genes, they may be mating with the birds that's singing earlier, which may not be a good reflection of fitness. And again, many birds just die in collision with buildings at night, and birds migrate at night, and their circadian rhythms can be affected, which that can increase their hormonal physiology. So light is used to help them with their hormonal, physiological, morphological, and behavioral changes that go before breeding, and this could shorten their annual cycle and affect all of those things. And they actually use the night length to know how much to grow. It helps their metabolism. It dictates their skeletal development, their sexual development, their courtship and mating, their reproductive cycles, and again, their migration and their molting. So there's just all these effects of songbirds singing earlier, extending their feeding times, having increased exposure to competition and predation. They may enter premature breeding condition. They may lay eggs earlier or extend their breeding season. And it may alter the timing of migration, which can lead to ecological mistiming for when they need to arrive where. And fall migration may be delayed by exposing birds to a lack of adequate food reserves when they arrive. And this is the result, or can be the result, of birds migrating at night. They use the cues from the night sky to help them orient. And as we have artificial light in the sky, it can disorient them and cause them to collide with buildings. So the skies are dangerous as they are. And I share this just more as an interesting fact that you may think intuitively wind turbines would be really bad for birds, but actually residences and buildings far outweigh the mortality that's caused to birds colliding. So moving on from birds, we have herps, and that's reptiles and amphibians. Sea turtles are a really well-known example of the negative effects of artificial lighting. Site selection of sea turtles at night have shifted. They now cluster in the shadows of tall buildings like condominiums on the beach because they serve as a barrier to the sky glow from the city. And so they're actually nesting in the shadow of high-rise buildings on the beach because this is the darkness they need. And artificial lighting is disrupting their seaward orientation of hatchlings, and they're disoriented and misoriented. And this weakens the hatchlings as it utilizes their energy as opposed to crawling to the sea. They're crawling other places, and they can become weakened. This can cause dehydration. They can become predated or killed by the temperatures that come in the day. Since they didn't make it to the sea. And in Florida, it's estimated that hundreds of thousands of hatchlings are lost annually because of disrupted orientation. Now, talking about other reptiles and amphibians, much less is known about other effects from artificial lighting. But just think, what's the effect of lighting in Kerrville on the Guadalupe River, the turtles there from the lights from our city? Nocturnal activity is widespread in reptiles, and more light increases their visibility, which may help predators. It may help them locate prey, but it may also help them be located by their predators. And so that reaction to that may actually decrease their activity levels. And so that can just alter interactions. And lighting can actually affect interactions between temperature and hormone levels, which could be impacting the actual biology of the reptiles. Frogs are another example. Many species of frogs and toads are partially or completely nocturnal, and they're both, again, predators and prey. And so artificial lighting can change the interactions between those dynamics. And certain frogs have been shown to congregate under streetlights to take advantage of more prey, but this puts them at greater risk of being hit by cars or being prey themselves. And some frogs are adopted to low light situations, and increased light constrain their ability to compensate for more light. And here's another example of a frog. There's this frog, the Tungara frog, and it's more likely to choose mates and was more discriminating of mates under darker conditions than brighter conditions. So again, lighting could be affecting mate choice like in birds. And so these types of biological consequences could have major implications over a longer scale and throughout the food web or the ecosystem, because everything's interconnected. And as we change seemingly minor things, it could really scale up to some major changes. And again, these big things like that are largely unknown and understudied at this point. But lighting can disrupt nocturnal activity like emergence and foraging. and just have these cascading effects. And that's what's worrisome to me. And we may be changing things faster than species can adapt. So frogs, for example, they depend on moisture, and so they're tied to areas that have moisture. And so if they need to move because of lighting, they're only able to move to a place that still has moisture. So what do as they try to adapt to this? Next is fishes. So artificial night lighting influences fish foraging and schooling behavior, their spatial distribution, their predation risk, their migration, and their reproduction. And again, I just think about how these scale up to a community level and how those affect the ecology of prey and predators. Salmon, which I have pictured here, often migrate at night, and artificial light could disrupt that movement, increase their predation risk, and reduce the number of successful migrants. Artificial light could also dramatically affect the behavior and spatial distribution of fish in freshwater and estuaries, and just their whole behavior, like foraging, schooling, spawning, vertical movement, nocturnal emergent, all are affected by the cycles of light, and we're altering those. Here's a specific example that was studied. So this is the orange fin anemone fish, and scientists studied the effects of long-term exposure to chronic light pollution at night, and they looked at the survival and growth of juveniles, and they found that long-term exposure to light at night reduced the survival by an average of 36%, and the growth of this fish by an average of 44% in juveniles, compared to juveniles that were exposed to the natural moonlight underwater. Moving on to insects, I have a picture here of fireflies, which many of us love. There was a study in Maryland that found that fireflies had a 50% decrease in flashes per minute whenever artificial light was present, and fireflies use their light to attract mates and warn each other about predators. A study from Germany looked at the effects of street lamps, and they estimated that light from street lamps could wipe out more than 60 billion insects, 60 billion over a single summer. And that's insects flying straight into the lamps or collapsing from exhaustion after circling. Another study found that insect visits to plants dropped by nearly 2/3 under artificial light, and that daytime pollination couldn't compensate for that 2/3 drop, and that led to less fruit production. I share here a quote from E.O. Wilson that says, "If all mankind were to disappear, the world would regenerate back to," there's something in the way, but a state of equilibrium that existed 10,000 years ago. If insects were to vanish, the environment would collapse into chaos. So this kind of just demonstrates the importance of insects. And I wanted to give another example is imagine a moth crossing a meadow and being attracted to a street light. The moth could fly into the light and die on impact, or it could orbit the light until it falls and is caught by a predator. And often insects just don't have the ability to resist the stimulus of light, and therefore they will be disturbed in their essential activities, including migration, dispersal, foraging, mating, and reproduction. And lighting likely affects almost every aspect of the life cycle of individual moths, for example. In this example, I'll be talking about zooplankton, which live in the deep, dark water during the day and migrate up into shallow waters at night to graze on algae. And this movement is thought to be the biggest migration of biomass in the world. And a study in a lake near Boston found that sky glow reduced zooplankton's ascent by 2 meters, and the number of organisms that made the ascent was reduced by 10 to 20%. And this is significant enough that they expect this behavior could be an unacknowledged driver of fundamental lake processes such as algae bloom, which I have pictured here. So the presence of light could actually be causing algae blooms. And the presence of artificial light could actually be eliminating larger size zooplankton taxa and reducing their population because they're confined to deeper, colder waters where food is less abundant and where their growth is slower. Another example is stream macroinvertebrates. And this is the aquatic life stage of stream insects like mayfly nymphs, blackfly larvae, caddisfly larvae, and benthic crustaceans. They have a nocturnal pattern of movement, and it's called stream drift. And artificial lights could be suppressing drift and delaying drift initiation at night. And the consequences of this aren't known, but the productivity of stream insects and their fish consumers could be decreased because of that. Next is trees. In this picture here, you can see a confused tree who has leaves left where the glow of the light shines on the tree, and everywhere else where it's the more natural darkness, it has lost its leaves. A study from the UK found they looked at a 13-year record of timing of bud openings in trees, and they matched it up with satellite imagery of nighttime lighting and found that artificial lighting was likely linked with trees bursting their buds more than a week earlier than other trees. And this was a magnitude similar to that which is predicted for a 2 degrees Celsius increase of temperature. And a different study from Illinois found that soybean farms that had light from adjacent roads and passing cars could be delaying the maturation of crops by up to 7 weeks, as well as reducing yield. So there's a lot of tree processes that are affected by light, like seed germination, stem elongation, leaf expansion, conversion from a vegetative state to a flowering state, flower development, fruit development, cessation of leaf production, and leaf senescence. Another study found that artificially illuminated plant pollinator communities had nocturnal visits by pollinators to plants reduced by 62% compared to a dark area. And the result was 13% less fruit in the plants that they were studying. So they had 62% less pollinators that resulted in 13% less fruit. And again, if you scale up the implications of that beyond this one particular plant in the study and consider the ecological and economic consequences that this could have on other plants. Here's one more plant example. Scientists discovered that artificial light suppressed flowering in this plant, which is Lotus pedunculatus, causing a cascade effect on pea aphids, which fed on the flowers of the plant. So as light shone on this plant, it had less flowers. Aphids feed on the flowers and their numbers fail. The numbers of aphids fell, presumably because their food, which is the flowers, was less abundant. And so this provided some of the first experimental evidence of a strong bottom-up effect of the exposure of artificial light, which again is one of these scaling big picture ecological consequences that could be happening from artificial light. So to sort of recap all of that, I think I am unmuted now. There are effects of artificial lighting across the board, and they can kind of be boiled down into 4 categories. And the first is physiological ecology. And so that's animals entering reproductive condition, preparing to migrate or hibernate, egg laying, molting, having fat reserves, melatonin production, hormone production, and the consequences of that on timing of migration and reproduction. Those are all affected physiological effects of artificial lighting. There's also behavioral and population effects. Behavioral being orientation, disorientation, misorientation, attraction, repulsion, expanded behaviors into the night, temporary blindness, entrapment, reproduction. So you may have a less selective mate choice, inhibited movement. It may stop mating activity. It may alter mating choruses. It could affect the choice of night sites, disrupt synchronized reproductive events, increase predation, and stimulate reproductive activity. And it can also alter communication between species and between individuals. Artificial lighting is also having a community effect, and it's altering competition. It's disrupting the interactions of groups. It's altering community structure. For example, faster bats are congregating at lights while slower bats are avoiding lights. It's all the community is being impacted by predation. Increased foraging time also increases predation risk. It disrupts predator-prey relationships. The natural light regimes mediate interactions that predators aren't always favored. And then it has a ecosystem effect. Artificial light's cumulative effects have the potential to disrupt key ecosystem functions. So that's a lot, but I just wanted to really throw out some pretty detailed and very specific and a lot of examples of how artificial lighting is affecting wildlife. And here I want to share another Rich and Longcore quote, and that is, community structure will be altered where artificial night lighting affects interspecific interactions. A perpetual full moon from artificial lights will favor light-tolerant species and exclude others. If the darkest natural conditions never occur, species that maximize foraging during the new moon eventually could be compromised, at risk of failing to meet monthly energy budgets. The resulting community structure will be simplified. These changes in turn could affect ecosystem characteristics. So again, while we're talking about specific examples, what's not as well known and what is more alarming is the big scale long-term implications. So why else conserve the night sky? Economics. It can be a really significant investment to replace fixtures, but ultimately dark sky friendly lighting can save you money because you're only lighting what you need when you need it, and you're not wasting electricity for a light that's on when it doesn't need to be, or overly intense light, or lighting extra space. And so it's helping you save money. Why else conserve the night sky? Heritage. So there's this term solastalgia, and it's a new concept developed to give greater meaning to the clarity, give greater meaning and clarity to environmentally induced distress. So as opposed to nostalgia, the melancholy or homesickness experienced by individuals when separated from a loved home, solastalgia is the distress that is produced by environmental change impacting people while they are directly connected to their home environment. So we just have this night sky heritage, and we'll miss it when it's gone. And many of us may already miss it. The night sky has always provided information for us about time, seasons, directions for all of life on Earth. And like I said, until 70 to 80 years ago, the hill country at least, the night sky was the heritage that everyone experienced. And we need to conserve this night sky now so that our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren can enjoy it. Because we risk losing the heritage of the night sky in just a very few amount of years, especially compared to how long the sky had been dark before that. In America, it's estimated that 80% of the population can't see the Milky Way. And again, this is an entirely human-caused problem, but humans can reverse it. And this is a picture from Enchanted Rock State Natural Area. And then lastly, why conserve the night sky? Astronomy. This picture is of Jupiter. It's from NASA. Astronomy helps us to understand our place in the world better, and it gives us perspective. And it's an important source of interest, education, tourism, and income. And to bring it a little more local, the next generation deserves to see the night sky. And we have places in the hill country, in Kerrville, like Shriner, that has a telescope. And so our community, like in Kerrville, is just closely tied to the night sky and the heritage of it. And astronomy is a significant hobby and a source of tourism for the economy. And I know in the hill country, a lot of amateur astronomers move here and build observatories to be able to enjoy the night sky. And it's because we have dark skies still. And this would be a tragic loss to our heritage, our education, and our economy if we didn't have dark skies. So I'm going to take a quick break here as we shift to what we can do about it, and just maybe check in to see if there's any questions. I'm going to try to look through the chat too.
Hey, Kevin, this is Frank. I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
When you're talking about, the studies out there, does the United States have the same amount of studies for the effects that the night lights have, like other parts of the world have, or is it pretty much the same?
It seemed like several of the studies did come from the United States. I know there was the one from Illinois and from Boston. So I know people are doing work here, but if I didn't make this clear, I was kind of shocked at how little there was actually studied, how little specific studies existed to show the impacts beyond those well-known examples that I shared. And a lot of the information I shared is more broad and not even species specific. There was a major lack in studies of specific species. And so that was surprising to me as I did some more personal research on all this.
Okay, and then I have another one in case somebody else wants to gather their thoughts and maybe put into a question. But you showed the picture of the state of Texas with the lights, glaring in the night, and in between Kerrville, and I was, I live in the same neighborhood you do, and it brought it closer to home by seeing that glare in Kerrville, and it's like, whoa, that is pretty amazing. I was not aware it was that bright.
Yes, and actually, that's a great transition. I'll have another time for questions, but I will, on my next slide here, I actually talk about just how dark Kerrville is. So
okay,
I will jump on into that. Thanks for that great segue.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kevin, before you do that,
Yeah.
I just want to remind people, as Kevin's talking, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then we'll revisit the chat room when we take another pause. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Carla. So the time to act is now. This map is another representation of light pollution in Texas. And you can see Kerrville outlined here, Kerr County outlined with an arrow to Kerrville and then an arrow to Fredericksburg. And you can see that light pollution is rapidly encroaching on the dark hill country. So again, the time to act is now. Bexar County So the three colors you see here is a dark blue, a medium blue, and a light blue. Dark blue represents excellent sky quality. The middle blue represents good sky quality, and the light blue represents poor sky quality. So Bexar County, and this data is from 2019, has 0% excellent sky quality, 3.5% good sky quality, and 96% poor sky quality. Kerr County has 66% excellent sky quality, 32% good, and 2% poor. And then Gillespie County is doing well. They have 87% excellent sky quality, 12.5% good, and 0.3% poor. So there is still something to protect. We still have dark sky where many of us live. And so what can we do about it? The answer, fortunately, is largely simple. It's night sky friendly outdoor lighting. And so that is what we'll be talking about. What is night sky friendly lighting? There are 5 main tenets of night sky friendly lighting, and I'll share all 5 now, and then I'll go through each of them in quite a bit more detail with pictures as examples. But just so you know, as we go through each of these, what the 5 are, it's light only what you need, light only as bright as you need it, light shielded and directed down, lights on only when you need it, and light color is warm white, which is 3000 degrees Kelvin or less. So jumping into what each of those mean. The first one is light only what you need. That's no wasted light. This saves money and it helps you achieve night sky friendly lighting. A lot of people have light on where they don't need it. You can see in the graphic in the middle, those are lights on that don't need to be. And then you can see to the right what it would look like to only have the light on that you need. You're walking through your front door, you don't need the rest, and especially at that top light, the sky illuminated. So ask yourself the purpose of each light and ensure that it has a specific goal that it's trying to achieve for each light. And if you discover you don't need it, then don't use it. So for example, we hardly ever use our front door, so I hardly ever turn on the front porch light. So that's lighting only when you need it. The second tenet was use energy efficient bulbs and only as bright as you need. Energy efficient bulbs save money, and they've come a long way. The LED lights now have warmer temperatures and then also are dimmable, and that allows you to only have as much light as you need. So again, you can see in these pictures what's good and what's bad, what's good with the green arrow, what's bad with the red X. So you have your lighting only what you need, but then to take it a step further in this step, you don't need that much light, so you lower the intensity. So it's only as bright as you need. And then you have your lights shielded down and directed down. You have your lights shielded and directed down. And in my opinion, this is the most important step to having dark sky friendly lighting, because you could have all the other aspects in place. You could have the right color temperature bulb. You could light what you need. You could only have as much light as you need. But if it wasn't shielded and directed downward, then it wouldn't be probably dark sky friendly. And that's the shielding and directing downward is what keeps light from going up into the sky. So in the pictures here, you can see that you don't need that light shining directly upward. If you shield it and direct it downward, you have that starry sky and you're protecting that. So another example of this that you'll hear is called a full cutoff. And that's just a light that's fully cut off from going above the horizon of basically the bottom of the fixture. So it's directed downward and it's not going up into the sky. The fourth way to have dark sky friendly lighting is only lighting when you need it. So an ideal scenario here would be having lights on a timer or maybe a motion sensor so that they're only on when you need it. So in the graphic here, instead of having your light left on until you happen to walk by, perhaps you use a timer or a motion sensor so that it is ready when you need it, but is only on when it needs to be. And lastly, the color temperature of your bulb. So choose warm white over cool white. So this is really essential to picking to pick the right color temperature. Bulbs that are warm, which is considered 3,000 degree Kelvin or less, is less likely to trigger wildlife. So you can see in this graphic here that you have your light that's warmer with the check mark, and then cooler and attracting insects in the X picture. And just to talk a little bit more about color temperature, I have this picture that just kind of shows the scale. We definitely want to be on the far left, that warm white, that 20,000 degree Kelvin to 3,000 degree Kelvin. And so we're trying to avoid here wavelengths that trigger negative wildlife reactions. And, it's really common for people to have 5,000 degree Kelvin, and you really just don't need it. And that warm light is just better for everyone. So now, tying those all together, this picture is showing all 5 put into practice. So going from the left to right, you're lighting only what you need. You don't have light that's going into the sky or out away from the fixture where it's not intended. It's only lighting, you're going towards only lighting what you need to do. And that's done through shielding the lights and directing them downward. And this is preventing, again, that light from going where it wasn't intended, like into the sky. And then you're choosing a warm color, which is 3,000 degree Kelvin or less. And then maybe you don't need all of that light, so you're only using as much light as you need. And that could be with a dimmer, where you don't use the full intensity. And then lastly, you light only when you need it. So instead of maybe leaving your light on while you go to the grocery store, you can install a timer or motion sensor. So again, it's ready when you need it, but it's not on when you don't. So this is the ideal progression, going from non-dark sky friendly to the most ideal dark sky friendly fixture. So now that we know what night sky friendly lighting is, what can you do? You can use your influence. You can start by making changes at your house, then talk to maybe your neighbors or your HOA. You could talk to the businesses you frequent. You could visit your city council members or your elected officials and let them know that you care about the night sky. Or you could join a group. So I'll go through each of those in a little bit more detail now, but it starts with each of us, and there's small changes that we can make that have really big impacts. And if each of us are doing that, this could scale up to be really significant. So I'll use an example from my house. This is a light fixture on our side door, and it's technically a dark sky friendly fixture because it's shielded, it's directed downward, it's even under our roof line. But it was creating glare and light trespass, which are 2 components of light pollution, because the bulb partially stuck out past the bottom of the fixture. So I went to Home Depot and I found a bulb that fit the fixture threading but was shorter, and I ensured that it was 3,000 degree Kelvin or less, and I installed it. And now in the picture in the middle is after installation. You can see that I've eliminated that glare and that light trespass into my neighbor's yard, and it's just more aesthetically pleasing, and it doesn't hurt our eyes when we're walking up to our door. And so this was just a simple fix that anybody could do. You could maybe, if your fixture is already in a pretty good place, you just replace some bulbs and you could be dark sky friendly, or you may replace the entire fixture. And if you do decide to take that on, the IDA, which is again the International Dark Sky Association, has a way to help you. They have on their website a list of approved products, and there's different categories. So you could search by a retailer or a company or a residential normal lights that are in residences. But beware, not all lights are night sky friendly. So this list is designed to give it, it's a fixture seal of approval that the IDA has created. And so every light on their website with this fixture seal of approval is dark sky friendly. But some light fixtures may advertise as dark sky friendly. Nobody owns that term. And so you have to be cautious that what you're getting is actually dark sky friendly. And this is a resource to help you do that. So if you're wanting to make a change at your house, you can go to this website and find a fixture that works for you that has this approval, and you can make some really important progress. Also, the Hill Country Alliance has a list on their website of commercially available light fixtures from Home Depot that are night sky friendly. And then there's other resources out there. This is a great graphic that shows examples of acceptable and unacceptable light fixtures. And so while not specific, it at least gives you a general sense of what to look for and helps you know, is your lighting currently dark sky friendly or not, and helps you figure out how to move towards it, because it really can be tricky to determine if a fixture is dark sky friendly. And so these resources will help you. I also mentioned talking to your neighbor. The IDA provides a sample letter that you can use to help talk to your neighbor, and just provides a framework of how you can pose it to them that their lighting needs to be improved. Or you could contact neighbors through other ways like Nextdoor or whatever you use, or maybe your HOA. But there are resources out there to help you have those conversations if you decide to take that on. I also wanted to give another local example. So the Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky, which I'm involved with, we can provide talks, and other friends groups do this also, to HOAs to help educate your neighborhoods on the benefits of night sky friendly outdoor lighting. And as an example, we gave a talk to the Tierra Linda Garden Club, and now they're interested in pursuing a dark sky designation with the IDA. And I'm not saying that they're definitively doing this, but they are potentially interested. And I share this to say that it stemmed from something as small as a talk and a conversation about this, and kind of organically is possibly blossoming into some really important progress. And just imagine if the entire Tierra Linda Ranch was dark sky friendly as a result of the conversation. So anybody can have that conversation. And also there's resources like Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky and others that will help you have that conversation. I also mentioned businesses. So I provide this example from the Big Bend region, and you can see the fixtures that as they were before, and it looks like they use the same fixtures, and all they did was angle them fully downward. And you can see the difference of before and after, and they became dark sky friendly. And this is a big business, it looks like a big factory of some sort maybe, but they made that change. And so maybe you work somewhere, or you're a customer somewhere where you have influence to ask the owners or the managers to make a change. And it's just these relatively small changes that can have a really huge impact. Maybe it's just angling down the lights you already have, like this example. But when businesses decide to change, this can have a really powerful impact on the community. And then I wanted to share another local example. The Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky has a night sky friendly business recognition program. It's a partnership of the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce and helped out by the Hill Country Alliance. And this helps recognize businesses that do have dark sky friendly lighting. And we're all involved with businesses. We're either work at one or a customer of one, and we can help influence positive change and have the conversations. And so, for example, by giving this benefit to businesses that are willing to make sure they have dark sky lighting, we're making an impact, and we're just a group of neighbors. The Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky. We're not paid to do this. We're just volunteers, and we just happen to care, and we're taking the time to do this. But we're hoping to see some really awesome change as this grows, as the program grows, and more people get involved. And this is just a neat chance to unite businesses to the community effort, and to let them have a greater impact beyond their own business. And then a really neat local example again is KPUB. So KPUB is the Kerrville Public Utility Board, and they've replaced over 3,600 streetlights with fixtures that are fully cut off within their service area, which is 146 square miles, and serves 23,000 customers from Kerrville, Center Point, Ingram, Hunt, and surrounding areas in Kerr County. So that's no small deal. The new lights are estimated to save over 1.6 million kilowatt hours per year, which is almost 60% less energy used. And the savings is the amount of energy of 100 homes, the amount of energy 100 homes would use in a year. And the lights require less maintenance. They're expected to last longer than the fixtures they replaced. And the payback was estimated to be 5.2 years. So this is a huge impact, but I say it as an encouragement because it's just one decision by one company. And while they do have a huge impact on the entire community, and not every decision carries this sort of influence or weight or impact, it does start just with an individual making a choice. And we're all individuals that can make choices. And we need to be celebrating these successes and bringing this awareness to light and encouraging more businesses to take action. So I'm almost done. I wanted to share again about Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky. We're a grassroots organization that the Hill Country Alliance helped to form. But like I said, none of us are paid. It's volunteers, much like TMN, Texas Master Naturalist. And we're just a group of concerned neighbors that came together to form this group. And we feel encouraged that we can do a lot when we pull together and unify behind the passion and experience and talent of each person in the group. And together we're just much better than we are apart. And we're making, I think, real and significant headway. And again, I say all this because I'm not trying to push the group. This isn't a plug for us. I say that we're just happen to be people that came together because we care, and anybody can do that, from the individual to the business to the entire community. We can just care and take action. But if you do want to get involved with our efforts, we have a website and a Facebook and Instagram where you can find out where to get more involved, or you can message me or talk to me after. But I say all that to say that anyone can make positive change. Maybe you're building a house, or you're picking a dark sky friendly fixture and you talk to your builder about it, or you own a business and you make it night sky friendly, or maybe you're a scientist and you pick up some of these research gaps and study the impacts of artificial lighting on wildlife. Or maybe you are a citizen science and you contribute to night sky readings. Or maybe you're running for office and you make this a priority. But this, again, is a completely human problem. And that's actually encouraging to me, because that also means that we're the ones who can change it. And this is a much more tangible problem than a lot of others. And so the fruit is actually relatively low hanging. So with that, I wanted to share a few resources to get you started if you want to learn more. The IDA that I've mentioned a lot, the Hill Country Alliance, Kerr County Friends of the Night Sky, Hill Country Astronomers is a local group here in the Hill Country, Texan by Nature, The lists I referenced from Hill Country Alliance of dark sky friendly fixtures, from Home Depot, Globe at Night, etc. There's a lot of resources out there. And then lastly, I just want to end with this. So let us be reminded, as we light the world to suit our needs and whims, that doing so may come at the expense of other living beings, some of whom detect subtle gradations of light to which we are blind, and for whom the night is home. With that, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Kevin. I was looking over the chat, and there was one about, what was it? Did I miss it? It highlighted, could your organization do something in the Gillespie County? Would you do a presentation there, or could you help someone organize a group in Gillespie County?
I'm not sure if there's a group in that county, but definitely we could continue that conversation and potentially present there, or get you connected with somebody who can present there.
Okay. Yeah, that was asked by a couple of wife and husband team. That was Billy and Patty Guillen. So I think some of the other questions you covered on your presentations. I think I missed the one on IDA. What does IDA stand for?
That's the International Dark Sky Association.
Okay.
And they are sort of leading the charge internationally on all these efforts and understanding the problem more, and what you can do about it. And they're kind of the hub for resources.
Then I saw one when, and I don't know this one, and hopefully I'm going to ask some key people on this, but when you do the dark skies as a Texas Master Naturalist, do you get any credit for this volunteer work that you're doing, or you haven't looked into that part?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a dark skies category that you can log this under.
Okay. And that's under the TMN website?
It's in VMS. It's I forget the 2 letters. It may be CC.
Okay. The cross county. Yeah. Got it. All right. And other than that, I think it was very informative. You covered a lot, and I appreciate what you're doing. I was trying to look over some of the questions here, and I have a mouse that's not acting the way it should be. So every time I move my finger, it jumps from one place to another. But within we had Cheryl Pender, who asked. She answered a couple of questions, so that was good. Thank you, Cheryl, for that. And there were some other people who also exchanged information. So Janice Atberry, she had a question, but it was answered as well. So unless you have anything else, I
want to
really
say thank you to Debbie Thompson in the chat. She is part of the group, and I see her answering questions. She's very knowledgeable. So
good deal.
if you have questions, you can also ask her. And Bridget Langsdale was on here. She is amazing, and so thank you for everything she does.
Okay, well, great. All right. Other than that, at this moment, since we know you're a TMN fellow member, we got your number and we got your email address. So if you got any questions, we can just send it to you directly. Okay.
Great.
All righty, and thanks again.
Thank y'all. Okay,
thank you. Unless Carla, you have anything else, we're good to go.
No, I don't. Thank you very much, Kevin. Wonderful comments in the chat too. Thanking you for a great conversation and session.
Yes.
Great. Glad to hear it.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Okay.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.